The snowstorm turned the highway into a graveyard of abandoned dreams. Alana Brooks had 10 days before the bank seized her father's diner, a 10-year-old son to protect, and every reason to turn away the 20 strangers in expensive suits asking for shelter. But when their leader knocked and simply said please, she opened the door. What Alana didn't know was that 23 years ago, her father had saved a desperate teenager during a storm just like this one, and that debt was about to be repaid in ways she never imagined. Tonight would prove that kindness never dies. It just waits for the right moment to strike back. Just before we get back to it, I'd love to know where you're watching from today, and if you're enjoying these stories, make sure you're subscribed. The wind howled like something alive and angry, rattling the windows of the roadside diner until the glass seemed ready to shatter. Alana Brooks stood behind the counter, watching the snow pile higher against the front door. The storm had come faster than the weather reports predicted, turning the rural highway into an impassable white void. Inside the diner, the lights flickered once, twice, then died completely. Darkness swallowed everything. Alana's breath caught in her throat. She fumbled for the flashlight she kept beneath the register, her fingers trembling slightly. Not from the cold, though the temperature was already dropping. From exhaustion. From the weight of everything she'd been carrying alone for too long. "Mom!" Micah's voice came from the corner booth where he'd been doing homework by the window. "Are we okay?" She forced brightness into her voice. "We're fine, baby. Just a power outage. Storm's messing with the lines." 10 years old, and already he worried too much. Already he looked at her with those thoughtful eyes that saw more than she wanted him to see. She crossed the worn linoleum floor, her shoes squeaking softly, and sat beside him. The flashlight beam cut through the darkness, illuminating his math worksheet and the pencil he'd been gripping. "It'll come back on soon," she said, knowing it probably wouldn't. Nothing in this diner worked the way it should anymore. The heater coughed more than it warmed. The refrigerator made sounds like it was dying. The roof leaked in 3 places she couldn't afford to fix. Her father had built this place with his own hands 40 years ago, and now she was watching it crumble around her. Micah nodded, trusting her completely. That trust felt like a knife sometimes. She hadn't told him about the eviction letter that arrived last Tuesday, or the one before that, or the certified mail from the bank that she'd shoved into the drawer beneath the cash register without opening because she already knew what it said. Foreclosure proceedings. Final notice. 30 days to vacate. Her father had left her this diner when he died 3 years ago. It was supposed to be a gift, a legacy, proof that he'd built something that mattered. Instead, it had become an anchor dragging her down. Business had dried up when they built the new interstate 20 miles east. Travelers didn't come through this stretch of highway anymore. Local customers couldn't keep a place afloat on coffee and pie alone. She tried everything. Early bird specials, weekend brunches, advertising on social media that nobody around here used. Nothing worked. The bills kept coming. The debt kept growing. And her pride kept her from asking anyone for help. Pride was a Brooks family trait. Her father used to say it with a smile, like it was something to be proud of. Now, Alana understood it was just another word for stubborn. The wind screamed louder, and something heavy slammed against the building's side. Micah jumped. "Just the storm," Alana said quietly. Nothing to worry about. But she was worried. The temperature would drop below freezing tonight. They had blankets upstairs in the small apartment above the diner, but without heat, it would be brutal. She'd have to layer everything they owned and hope Micah stayed warm enough. She was calculating how many candles they had left when she saw the lights. Headlights, cutting through the snow like searchlights. Multiple vehicles, moving slowly down the highway toward the diner. Alana stood, pressing her face closer to the window. The glass was ice cold against her skin. "Someone's coming," Micah said, his voice lifting with hope. 3 black SUVs pulled into the parking lot, their headlights illuminating the falling snow in brilliant white columns. They were expensive vehicles, the kind that didn't belong on this forgotten stretch of road. The kind that made Alana's stomach tighten with instinctive wariness. The engines cut off one by one. Doors opened. Men stepped out into the storm, their silhouettes sharp against the swirling white. She counted them. 10. 15, 20, all of them dressed in dark suits and winter coats that looked too fine for this weather. They moved with purpose, scanning the area like they were assessing a threat. Security, she realized. These men were security. Fear prickled along her spine. This wasn't right. Wealthy people didn't show up at failing diners in the middle of nowhere during blizzards. Not unless something was very wrong. One man separated from the group and walked toward the front door. He moved differently than the others, less rigidly, with a kind of quiet confidence that came from actually being in charge instead of just following orders. When he reached the door, he knocked, firm but not aggressive. Alana grabbed Micah's hand. "Stay close to me." She approached the door slowly, the flashlight beam shaking slightly in her grip. Through the frosted glass, she could see the man's outline. Tall, broad shoulders, patient, waiting for her to respond. She cracked the door open just enough to speak. The wind tried to rip it from her hands. The man standing before her was in his 40s, with dark hair touched with gray at the temples and eyes that looked tired but kind. His coat was expensive, tailored perfectly, but snow had already soaked the shoulders. He didn't look threatening. He looked exhausted. "I'm sorry to bother you," he said, his voice deep and surprisingly gentle. "We need shelter, just for tonight." Alana's grip tightened on the door. "This diner's closed." "I understand." He glanced back at his men, then returned his gaze to her. "The storm caught us between towns. Roads are impassable. We just need somewhere warm until morning." Everything in her screamed to say no. Strange men. Too many of them. Too well-dressed, too organized, too wrong for this situation. But the wind was brutal, and even through her fear, she could see they were genuinely stranded. "Please," the man added quietly, "we won't cause trouble. We'll stay in the dining area. We'll leave the moment the road's clear." Micah tugged her sleeve. She looked down at him. "Mom," he whispered, pointing past her. "That man's limping, and that one's shaking really bad." She followed his gaze. One of the men near the SUVs was favoring his left leg heavily, pain evident in the way he held himself. Another was shivering so violently she could see it from here. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. "Nobody gets turned away in a storm, Alana." Not ever. She'd heard him say it 100 times. 1,000. He'd fed travelers who couldn't pay. He'd let stranded families sleep in the booths. He'd given away more free coffee than he'd ever sold. That kindness had been part of why the diner failed, but it had also been who he was. She took a breath and opened the door wider. "Come inside," she said, "but just until the storm passes." Relief crossed the man's face. "Thank you. Truly." He turned and gestured to his team. They moved quickly, efficiently, filing into the diner in groups. They were polite, nodding to her as they passed, wiping snow from their boots before stepping on the floor. Some carried bags. Others held equipment she didn't recognize. The man who'd knocked entered last, closing the door firmly behind him against the howling wind. "I'm Victor," he said, extending his hand. "Victor Hade." She shook it cautiously. His grip was firm but not crushing. "Alana Brooks. This is my son, Micah." Victor looked down at Micah and smiled. "Thank you for sharing your home with us, Micah." Micah nodded shyly, pressing closer to his mother. The men spread throughout the dining area, setting down bags, removing wet coats. Despite their expensive clothes and obvious wealth, they weren't acting entitled. They weren't demanding anything. They moved quietly, respectfully, like guests who understood they were imposing. That surprised her more than anything. Victor surveyed the dark diner, taking in the flickering emergency candles, the cold air, the worn furniture. "Your power's out." "Storm knocked it out about 20 minutes ago," Alana said. One of Victor's men approached the booth, leaning down to speak quietly in his ear. Alana couldn't hear the words, but she saw Victor's jaw tighten slightly. He glanced toward the window, then nodded. The man walked away, and Victor pulled out his phone again despite the lack of signal. He typed something, his thumb moving quickly, like he was drafting a message to send the moment service returned. Alana's curiosity got the better of her. "What kind of business are you in, Mr. Hale?" He looked up, and for a moment, she thought he might not answer. Then he smiled faintly. "Investments." Development. Helping businesses grow. That's vague. It's complicated. She crossed her arms. Are you in some kind of trouble? His smile faded. Why would you think that? Because people like you don't end up stranded at places like this unless something went wrong. He studied her for a long moment. Then he leaned back in the booth, his posture relaxing slightly. You're perceptive. I'm a single mom running a failing diner in the middle of nowhere. I've gotten good at reading people. Fair enough. He paused, choosing his words carefully. I am traveling discreetly. Certain business matters require a low profile right now. The storm wasn't part of the plan. Low profile, she repeated. That's also vague. Also complicated. Before she could press further, the men in the kitchen called out that food was ready. The smell of scrambled eggs, bacon, and fresh coffee filled the diner. It was simple fare, but it smelled like heaven. Victor stood. May I? She nodded, and he walked to the kitchen, returning with 2 plates piled high with food. He set one in front of her, kept the other for himself, and called Micah over. The older man from the kitchen brought Micah his own plate, kneeling down to the boy's height. Made it special for you, young man. Extra cheese in the eggs, just like my grandson likes. Micah beamed. Thank you. They ate together, the whole strange group of them, scattered across booths and tables. The conversation was quiet, companionable. The men thanked Alana repeatedly for the shelter. They complimented the diner, even though it was falling apart. They treated Micah with gentle kindness that made her throat tight. These weren't bad men. Whatever else they weren't bad. But something was still off. She noticed Victor on his phone again, the screen glowing in the dim light. This time, when someone approached him, the conversation was more urgent. Whispered words. A glance toward the window. Victor's expression went carefully neutral, the kind of neutral that meant something was wrong. He stood and walked to the window, looking out into the storm. His posture was tense now. Alana followed him. What's going on? Probably nothing, he said. You're a terrible liar. He glanced at her, and something like respect flickered in his eyes. Someone's watching the diner. Her blood went cold. What? A vehicle parked about 100 yards down the road. Just sitting there. Maybe they're stranded too. Maybe. He didn't sound convinced. My men are keeping an eye on it. Are we in danger? Victor turned to face her fully. I don't think so. But I want you to know I would never have stopped here if I thought it would put you or your son at risk. Then who's out there? I don't know yet. His jaw tightened. But I'm going to find out. The night stretched on. The storm continued to rage, wind screaming around the building like something desperate to get inside. The mysterious vehicle eventually drove away, disappearing into the white chaos, but the tension it left behind lingered. Victor's men took shifts, some sleeping in booths while others kept watch. The older man, whose name she learned was Marcus, helped Micah with his math homework. Another man fixed the wobbly leg on one of the tables without being asked. A third found the leak in the roof and patched it temporarily using supplies from their vehicles. They weren't just taking shelter. They were helping, quietly, without fanfare, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Alana found herself standing beside Victor near the counter as the hours crept toward midnight. The diner was warm now, almost cozy. Micah had fallen asleep in one of the corner booths, covered with someone's expensive coat. Thank you, Victor said quietly, for trusting us. I'm not sure I do, Alana admitted. But my father taught me nobody gets turned away in a storm. Victor's expression changed. Something unreadable passed across his face. Your father sounds like he was a good man. He was. Too good sometimes. Gave away more than he should have. Nearly ran this place into the ground with kindness. And you've been trying to save it ever since. It wasn't a question. Somehow he already knew. She looked around the diner, at the cracked vinyl booths and the faded photographs on the walls. I'm losing it. The bank's foreclosing. I've got 30 days, maybe less. I'm sorry. Don't be. It's just business. It's more than that, Victor said. It's your father's legacy. She didn't trust herself to respond. Her throat felt too tight. Victor was quiet for a moment. Then, almost carefully, he said, If you needed help, would you accept it? No. Why not? Because I don't take charity. I never have. What if it wasn't charity? What if it was gratitude? She frowned. For what? Letting you stay one night. He opened his mouth, then closed it. Whatever he'd been about to say, he thought better of it. Never mind. It's late. You should get some rest. But she couldn't rest. Something in his tone, in the way he'd looked at the diner earlier, kept nagging at her. Like he knew this place. Like it meant something to him. Have you been here before? She asked suddenly. Victor met her eyes. For a long moment, he didn't answer. Then, very quietly, he said, "A long time ago. I think I might have been." Before she could ask what that meant, one of his men approached with urgent news. Roads were completely impassable. The storm had worsened. They'd be stuck here at least until morning, possibly longer. Victor nodded, absorbing the information. Then he turned back to Alana. "I know this is an imposition," he said, "but it looks like we'll be here a while longer. If that's a problem, we could try to make other arrangements." She thought about the warmth filling the diner, the food in Micah's belly, the sound of her son's laughter earlier, the way these strange, wealthy men had treated her failing diner with more respect than some of her regular customers. "It's fine," she said. "Stay as long as you need." Relief softened his features. "Thank you, Alana." The way he said her name felt personal. Familia, Samfel. She was about to respond when she noticed something. On the wall behind the counter, partially hidden by the old coffee maker, was a framed photograph. It showed her father, younger, maybe in his 30s, standing outside the diner with his arm around a skinny teenager. The kid looked half-starved, wearing clothes that didn't fit, but he was smiling. Victor had moved closer, his eyes fixed on the photograph. "That's my dad," Alana said. "He used to help people passing through. Gave them food, sometimes let them stay if they needed it." Victor stared at the photo for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough. "The boy in that picture. Do you know who he was?" "No idea. Just some kid my dad helped, I guess. There were a lot of them over the years." Victor's hand lifted, his fingers almost touching the glass. "Your father saved my life." The words hung in the air between them. Alana's breath caught. "What?" 23 years ago, I was 17, running from a bad situation. No money, no plan, nowhere to go. The storm that night was just like this one. His voice was barely above a whisper. "Your father found me trying to sleep in my broken-down car. He brought me here, fed me, let me stay until I got back on my feet. He never asked for anything in return." She stared at him, her mind racing. "You that kid?" He turned to face her, and she saw it now. The eyes, the shape of his jaw, older, filled out, transformed by time and success, but the same person. "I never forgot him," Victor said. "I never forgot this place. And I've been looking for a way to repay that kindness ever since." The revelation hung between them like something fragile and precious. Alana stared at Victor, trying to reconcile the desperate teenager in that old photograph with the composed billionaire standing before her. The man who'd needed her father's help. The man who'd never forgotten. "He never mentioned you," she said finally, her voice barely audible over the wind outside. All those people he helped over the years, and he never talked about any of them by name. Victor's smile was sad. "That sounds like him. He didn't help people for recognition. He did it because it was right." You remembered his name, though, the diner's name. "I've thought about that night every day for 23 years. Victor turned back to the photograph, his expression distant. "I was running from foster home that wasn't safe. Had $40 in a car that died 10 miles from here. When your father found me, I was certain I'd freeze to death before morning." Alana's chest tightened. She'd heard stories about her father's generosity, but they'd always been abstract. Distant tales from before she was born or when she was too young to remember. This was real, standing in front of her, living proof that her father's kindness had changed someone's entire life. "What happened after?" she asked. "After he helped you?" "He let me stay for 3 days. Fed me, gave me a place to sleep, never asked questions. When I was ready to leave, he handed me $200 and the address of a youth center 2 towns over, so they could help me get on my feet properly." Victor's voice roughened. "I tried to refuse the money. He told me it wasn't charity. He said I'd pay it forward someday, to someone else who needed it." "And did you?" "I've tried. Built my whole career around the idea that success means nothing if you don't help others climb with you." He looked at her directly. "But I never forgot the original debt. The one I owe to the man who saved my life when I was nobody. Alana felt tears prickling her eyes. She blinked them back. He would have been proud of what you became. I hope so. Victor's jaw tightened. And I hope he'd understand what I'm about to tell you. Before he could continue, one of his men approached quickly, his expression tense. Sir, we need to talk. Privately. Victor glanced at Alana apologetically. Excuse me for a moment. He walked away with the man, their heads bent together in urgent conversation. Alana watched them, unease building in her stomach. Something was wrong. She could see it in their body language, in the way other members of Victor's team subtly repositioned themselves around the diner. She moved to where Micah still slept, curled up in the booth with Victor's coat pulled up to his chin. His face was peaceful, innocent. Whatever was happening, she needed to keep him safe. Marcus appeared beside her, holding a fresh cup of coffee. He offered it to her with a gentle smile. Thought you could use this. She accepted it gratefully. Thank you. For everything tonight. You didn't have to help so much. Victor doesn't surround himself with people who do the minimum, Marcus said. He expects us to be decent human beings first, employees second. How long have you worked for him? 12 years. Best boss I've ever had, and I've had plenty. Marcus glanced toward where Victor stood with his team. He's a good man, Ms. Brooks. Whatever happens next, I want you to know that. The words sent ice down her spine. What do you mean, whatever happens next? Marcus hesitated, clearly debating how much to say. Just that situations can get complicated quickly. But Victor will make sure you and your boy stay safe. That's the kind of man he is. Before she could press him further, Victor returned. His expression was carefully controlled, but she could see the tension in his shoulders. Alana, we need to talk, he said quietly. She followed him to a booth away from the others, away from where Micah slept. They sat across from each other, and for a moment, Victor seemed to struggle with how to begin. I told you I was traveling discreetly, he said finally. There's a reason for that. My company, Hale Industries, is currently in the middle of a complicated situation. A hostile takeover attempt by a competitor named Lawson Pierce. I don't understand business, Alana said. What does that have to do with stopping here? Pierce is ruthless. He's been trying to destroy my company for months, using every dirty tactic imaginable. I've been traveling under the radar to finalize a major philanthropic project before he can interfere. Victor's hands clasped together on the table. The vehicle we saw watching the diner earlier concerns me. It's possible Pierce's people are tracking my movements. Fear coiled in her gut. You think they followed you here? I think it's possible. Then you need to leave. As soon as the road's clear, you need to go. Her voice rose slightly. I can't have dangerous people around my son. I know, and I will leave as soon as it's safe. But Alana, there's something else you need to understand. He leaned forward, his gaze intense. If Pierce's people know I stopped here, they may assume I'm hiding something valuable at this location. Money, documents, leverage. They might come back. The words hit her like a physical blow. You're saying I'm in danger because you stopped at my diner? I'm saying it's possible. I don't know for certain yet, but I won't lie to you about the risk. She stood abruptly, her hands shaking. This is insane. I let you stay because of Storm. Because my father taught me to help people. And now you're telling me some corporate criminal might target my business, my home, because of you. I'm sorry. Victor stood as well, his expression pained. If I could undo this, I would. But what's done is done. The question now is how we protect you and Micah. We. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. There is no we. You need to leave. First light, roads or no roads, you need to go. And if they're already watching, if leaving just confirms you know something. Victor's voice was firm, but not unkind. Alana, I understand you're angry. You have every right to be, but running scared might make things worse. She wanted to scream at him, to throw every wealthy, entitled person who'd ever made her life harder right back in his face. But underneath the anger was fear, cold and sharp. Because he was right. If dangerous people thought she was involved in something, leaving her alone wouldn't make her safer. What do you want from me? She asked, exhausted. Let me help you. Let my team secure this location. Make sure you and Mike are protected. And let me explain what I was actually coming here to do. I thought you were traveling for a philanthropic project. I am. It's called the Rural Renaissance Initiative. Victor's tone softened. I've been working on it for 3 years. The goal is to revitalize struggling rural communities by investing in local businesses, infrastructure, and education, creating sustainable economic growth in places that have been left behind. Despite herself, Alana felt a flicker of curiosity. Why? Because I came from nothing. Because your father showed me that kindness matters more than profit. Because I have the resources to make a real difference. And I'm tired of watching communities like this one die. He gestured around the diner. This place, where your father built, it represents exactly what I'm trying to save. Connection. Community. The kind of small-town heart that makes America worth fighting for. She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to. But trust was expensive, and she'd learned not to spend it carelessly. Even if that's true, she said slowly, it doesn't change the danger you've brought to my door. No, it doesn't. But it means I have every reason to keep you safe, not just because I owe your father a debt, but because you're exactly the kind of person I built this initiative to help. A sound from across the diner made them both turn. Micah had woken up, rubbing his eyes sleepily. He looked around, momentarily confused, then spotted his mother. Mom? What's wrong? She forced calm into her voice. Nothing, baby. Just grown-up talk. Go back to sleep. But Micah was too perceptive for that. He slid out of the booth and walked over, his small face serious. Are the men leaving? Soon, Victor said gently. As soon as the weather clears. Micah looked between them, sensing the tension. Did something bad happen? Alana knelt down to his level. No, everything's okay. Mr. Hale was just explaining some work stuff to me. Oh, Micah turned to Victor. Are you really rich like the men said? Victor's lips quirked. I have money, yes. Then why did you need to stay here? Rich people have lots of places to go. Out of the mouths of children. The question was so simple, so direct, that it cut through all the adult complexity. Victor considered his answer carefully. Sometimes the best shelter isn't the fanciest. Sometimes it's the place where people care about each other. Like your mom cared enough to let us stay, even though we're strangers. Micah seemed to accept this. My grandpa used to say the diner was for everyone. Mom tells me stories about all the people he helped. Your grandfather was a remarkable man, Victor said. He helped me once, when I was not much older than you are now. Micah's eyes widened. Really? What happened? I was in trouble, and he gave me food and a safe place to stay. He didn't have to, but he did anyway. That kindness changed my whole life. Alana watched her son's face transform with wonder and pride. Pride in a grandfather he barely remembered, in a legacy he was too young to understand. It broke something open in her chest. Micah, go get ready for bed upstairs, she said softly. I'll be up in a few minutes. He nodded and headed for the stairs leading to their small apartment. When he was gone, Alana turned back to Victor. Don't make promises you can't keep, she said. Not to him. He's already lost too much. I won't, Victor promised. Everything I've told you tonight is true. I'm not here to take advantage of you or your situation. I'm here because fate or luck or your father's memory brought me back to the one place I've never been able to repay. She studied his face, searching for deception. She found none, only sincerity and something deeper. Guilt, maybe, or obligation. The foreclosure, she said abruptly. You knew about it already, didn't you? Before I told you. Victor nodded slowly. My team does research on areas we're considering for investment. Your diner came up in the initial surveys for this region. I saw the records. I knew it was struggling, and you just happened to end up here during a storm. The storm was chance. But when I saw the name Brooks Roadside Diner, I knew I had to stop. I wanted to see if it was really the same place. If the family of the man who saved me was still here. That's convenient. It's the truth. They stood in tense silence. Around them, Victor's men maintained their quiet vigilance. Marcus had taken up a position near the window, watching the storm. Others had settled into booths, but none of them truly relaxed. They were ready for something, ready for trouble. What exactly is this Lawson Pierce capable of? Alana asked. You said he was ruthless. What does that mean? Victor's expression darkened. He's been accused of corporate espionage, blackmail, and intimidation. Nothing's ever been proven, but the pattern is clear. He identifies companies he wants, then destroys them from the inside. turns their own people against them, leaks confidential information, manipulates stock prices. He's left a trail of ruined businesses and broken people. And he wants yours. He wants everything I've built. Not because he needs it, but because he can't stand that I won't sell to him. Victor's jaw clenched. 3 months ago, someone leaked details of the Rural Renaissance Initiative to the press before we were ready. It forced us to go public prematurely, before all the legal protections were in place. That was Pierce. Why does he care about a philanthropic project? Because it makes me look good. Because it creates loyalty in communities he might want to exploit later. Because everything I do that builds goodwill is something he sees as a threat to his influence. Victor's voice was bitter. He operates on power and fear. I operate on cooperation and mutual benefit. We're fundamentally opposed. Alana absorbed this, her mind racing. If he's that dangerous, why are you traveling with just a security team? Why not stay somewhere safe? Because I refuse to let him dictate how I live my life. This initiative matters too much. These communities need help now, not whenever it's convenient or safe for me. She almost admired his stubbornness. Almost. But admiration didn't protect her son. I need guarantees, she said firmly. If I let you stay, if I accept your help, I need to know Micah will be safe. That's non-negotiable. You have my word, and I'll put it in writing if you want. Your word. She laughed shakily. A few hours ago, you were a stranger. Now you're asking me to trust you with my son's life. I'm asking you to trust that I would never let harm come to the child of the man who saved me. That debt is sacred, Alana. More sacred than any contract or business deal. She wanted to believe him. Every instinct she developed as a mother screamed caution, but every memory of her father whispered trust. Her father had seen something worth saving in that desperate teenager all those years ago. Maybe she needed to see it too. Okay, she said finally. You can stay. For now. But the moment I think Mike is in danger, you leave. No arguments, no negotiations. Agreed. They shook hands, and this time the gesture felt heavier. More binding. The rest of the night passed in uneasy quiet. The storm continued to rage outside, but inside the diner, an odd sense of normalcy emerged. Victor's men took shifts sleeping and watching. Some worked on laptops that glowed softly in the dim light. Others simply sat, waiting. Alana checked on Micah, finding him fast asleep in his small bedroom upstairs. She stood in the doorway for a long moment, watching his chest rise and fall. 10 years old, and already the world was more complicated than he deserved. When she came back downstairs, she found Victor sitting alone in a booth, staring at the old photograph of her father and his younger self. He didn't notice her approach until she slid into the seat across from him. Can't sleep? She asked. He shook his head. Too much on my mind. Tell me about him. My father. What was he like when he helped you? Victor's expression softened. Patient. He didn't push me to talk about why I was running or where I'd come from. He just made sure I was warm and fed. When I finally did open up, he listened without judgment. Told me everyone deserves a second chance, no matter what they've survived. That sounds like him. Alana smiled despite herself. He used to say the diner wasn't just a business. It was a lighthouse, a place people could find when they were lost. He was right. It saved me. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Alana noticed something odd. One of Victor's men was having a heated conversation with another, their voices low but urgent. She saw Victor notice it too, his posture tensing. The man who'd been talking approached their booth quickly. Sir, we have a problem. Victor stood immediately. What kind of problem? Security footage from the perimeter cameras. Someone's been taking photographs of the building. Long-range lens. They're documenting who's here. Alana's blood ran cold. When? Started about an hour ago. We just spotted them. Victor's expression went hard. Where are they now? Pulled back when we started moving toward their position. But they got plenty of shots before we noticed. Pierce, Victor said, the name like a curse. The man nodded. Almost certainly. They know you're here, and they're gathering intelligence. Alana stood, fear overriding everything else. I need to get Micah. We need to leave. Where would you go? Victor asked gently. The roads are still impassable, and if they're already watching, Leaving might put you in more danger. I can't just sit here while someone takes pictures of my home. You won't. We're going to handle this. Victor turned to his man. Double the perimeter. I want eyes on every approach. If anyone gets within 50 yards of this building, I want to know immediately. Yes, sir. As the man walked away, Victor looked at Alana. I know you're scared, but panic won't help. We need to think strategically. This isn't a business deal, Victor. This is my life. My son's life. I know, and I'm going to protect both. His voice was steel wrapped in velvet. Pierce wants to pressure me. He thinks if he threatens you, I'll back down from the initiative or the takeover fight. He's wrong. You don't know that I'm safe. No, he admitted. I don't. But I know I'm not leaving you unprotected. The night stretched toward dawn. The storm began to ease slightly, though the roads remained treacherous. Alana tried to rest, but couldn't. Every sound made her jump. Every shadow seemed threatening. Around 4 in the morning, Marcus brought her hot tea and sat down beside her. You're going to exhaust yourself, Ms. Brooks. I can't stop thinking about those photographs. What they mean someone's interested in Victor's movements. But that's not new. He's been dealing with Pierce's surveillance for months. But now I'm part of it. Micah's part of it. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Victor told you about your father? Yes. Then you understand this isn't just business for him. It's personal. He won't let anything happen to you or your boy. Not after what your father did for him. One good deed 23 years ago doesn't obligate him to risk everything now. You're right. It doesn't obligate him. Marcus smiled. He does it anyway because that's who he is. Your father saw that in him all those years ago. Saw the potential. And Victor spent his whole life trying to live up to that faith. The words settled something in her chest. Not peace exactly, but understanding. As dawn broke gray and cold, the storm finally began to clear. Visibility improved. The wind died down. Victor's men confirmed the roads were still dangerous, but potentially passable within hours. Victor found Alana in the kitchen, where she'd started making coffee for everyone. He looked as exhausted as she felt. I've made a decision, he said without preamble. My team and I are going to leave as soon as the roads are clear, but I'm leaving a security detail behind. For men, rotating shifts. They'll stay until we're certain there's no threat to you or Micah. I can't afford security. You're not paying for it. I am. Victor, I can't accept that. You can, and you will. This isn't up for debate, Alana. I brought this danger to your door, and I'm going to make sure you're protected until it passes. She wanted to argue. Wanted to throw her pride in his face and refuse his help. But fear for Micah overrode everything else. Fine, she said quietly. But just until things settle down. Agreed. He hesitated, then added, there's something else. The foreclosure. I want to help with that too. No, Alana, please listen. I'm not offering charity. I'm offering an investment. Your diner is exactly the kind of community anchor the Rural Renaissance Initiative was designed to support. Let me make this the pilot program. Let me show other communities what's possible when we invest in local heritage instead of letting it die. You're using my father's memory to manipulate me. I'm honoring your father's memory by helping his daughter save what he built. Victor's voice was passionate now, urgent. This diner matters, Alana. Not just to you, but to everyone who's ever stopped here and found kindness. Your father understood that places like this are the heart of America. I'm just asking for the chance to keep that heart beating. She stared at him, emotions warring inside her. Pride, fear, hope, desperation. I need to think about it, she said finally. That's all I'm asking. Think about it. Consider what your father would want. And remember that accepting help isn't weakness. It's wisdom. Before she could respond, one of his men burst through the kitchen door. Sir, we have a situation. There's been a break-in attempt. Someone tried the back entrance. Victor's expression went cold. Just now. We stopped them before they got inside, but they ran before we could identify them. Alana's knees went weak. Someone had tried to get into her diner, into her home, where Micah was sleeping. Victor turned to her, his eyes blazing. This isn't just business anymore. Someone wants me ruined, and you're caught in the middle. I'm not leaving until I know you're safe. Until I know he can't touch you or your son. She nodded, unable to speak past the fear in her throat. Get Micah, Victor said quietly. Keep him close today. Don't let him out of your sight. Okay. As she headed for the stairs, Victor called after her. Alana? I meant what I said. I won't let anything happen to you. That's a promise. She looked back at him. This stranger who wasn't a stranger. This billionaire with a debt to a dead man and a determination that bordered on obsession. I hope you can keep it, she whispered. Then she went to wake her son, wondering what kind of world they'd woken up to and whether they'd ever feel safe again. The morning light filtered through the diner windows, weak and gray. The storm had passed, but the danger remained. And somewhere out there, in the clearing snow, someone was watching, waiting, planning. The morning after the break-in attempt, Alana stood at the diner's front window, watching Micah play in the snow under Marcus's careful supervision. For Victor's security team had remained, just as promised. The others had left with Victor at dawn, their black SUVs disappearing into the gray winter landscape. But Victor himself had stayed. He'd made calls, rearranged meetings, and quietly set up a temporary office in the corner booth. She should have felt grateful. Instead, she felt trapped. The sound of tires crunching on snow made her turn. A police cruiser pulled into the parking lot, moving slowly. Two officers emerged, their expressions neutral but alert. Alana's stomach tightened. She met them at the door before they could knock. Officers, can I help you? The older one, a heavy-set man with a gray mustache, nodded politely. Morning, Ms. Brooks. I am Sheriff Dalton. This is Deputy Lewis. We received some calls about suspicious activity at your establishment. Mind if we come in and ask a few questions? Her mouth went dry. Of course. They entered, and she saw their eyes sweep the diner, taking in everything. The expensive equipment Victor's team had left behind. The security monitors discreetly positioned near the counter. The men sitting at various tables, all of them clearly more than ordinary customers. Sheriff Dalton's gaze settled on Victor, who stood and approached with calm confidence. Sheriff, Victor said, extending his hand. Victor Hade. I own Hale Industries. My team and I took shelter here during the storm. Dalton shook his hand slowly, assessing. That was 2 days ago. Storm's passed. It has. But Ms. Brooks and I have been discussing a business arrangement. My company is interested in investing in her establishment as part of a rural development initiative. The explanation was smooth, professional, and technically true. But Alana could see the skepticism in Dalton's eyes. Business arrangement, Dalton repeated. We've had reports of armed men, multiple vehicles, people coming and going at odd hours. Some folks are concerned about what kind of business you might be conducting. Heat flooded Alana's face. I'm running a diner, Sheriff. That's all. Mr. Hale and his team needed shelter. I provided it. There's nothing illegal happening here. Nobody said there was, Ms. Brooks. Deputy Lewis spoke for the first time, his tone softer than Dalton's. We're just following up on community concerns. You understand. I understand people in this town have nothing better to do than gossip, Alana said, her voice sharper than she intended. Dalton's expression hardened. We take all reports seriously. Now, I'm going to need to see some identification from everyone present. Standard procedure. Victor nodded. Of course. My men will cooperate fully. For the next 20 minutes, the officers moved through the diner, checking identification, asking questions. Alana watched, humiliation burning in her chest. Her neighbors had called the police on her. People she'd known her whole life thought she was involved in something criminal. When the officers finally left, satisfied but still suspicious, Alana sank into a booth. She felt Victor sit across from her, but she couldn't look at him. I'm sorry, he said quietly. You should be. Her voice shook. 2 days ago, I was just another struggling business owner. Now I'm a subject of police investigations and town gossip. All because I let you stay. You did the right thing. Did I? Because it doesn't feel right. It feels like everything's falling apart faster than it was before. Victor was silent for a moment. Then he pulled out his phone and showed her the screen. This article was published this morning. Local news outlet. She read the headline. Billionaire CEO spotted in rural town amid corporate takeover battle. Below, it was a photograph of the diner and another of Victor's SUVs in the parking lot. Pierce leaked our location, Victor said, his jaw tight. He's trying to create a narrative that I'm hiding, that I'm afraid, making me look weak to investors and shareholders. I don't care about your corporate problems, Alana said, pushing the phone away. I care about my son's safety and my reputation in this community. They're connected now. Pierce doesn't just want to embarrass me. He wants to isolate me, cut off my support. Making you look suspicious serves that purpose. She wanted to scream. Instead, she stood and walked to the kitchen, needing distance. Victor followed. There's more, he said. The bank called my office this morning. They're accelerating your foreclosure timeline. Instead of 30 days, you now have 10. The floor seemed to tilt beneath her. What? They can't do that. They can if they claim changed circumstances. New risk factors. Pierce has connections at your bank, Alana. He's applying pressure from every angle. This is insane. She gripped the counter, her knuckles white. I'm losing my home because some billionaire wants to destroy another billionaire. Do you understand how crazy that sounds? Edo. And I'm going to fix it. You can't fix this. Don't you see? Your presence here has made everything worse. The police think I'm involved in something shady. My neighbors are gossiping. The bank's calling in my loans. This is a disaster. Then let me help you properly. Victor's voice was intense. Signed a partnership agreement for the Rural Renaissance Initiative. Let me invest in the diner officially. Once that paperwork is filed, Pierce can't touch you without exposing himself to legal action. And what do I give up in exchange? Control of my father's business? My independence? You give up nothing. The terms are clear. I provide capital for renovations and operational costs. You maintain full operational control. Profits are split fairly. And there's a buyout clause if you ever want me out completely. It sounded too good to be true. In Alana's experience, things that sounded too good to be true always were. I need time to think, she said. Time is something we don't have much of. 10 days until foreclosure, Alana. After that, the bank takes everything. Before she could respond, Micah burst through the back door, his cheeks red from cold and exercise. Marcus followed him in, smiling at the boy's enthusiasm. Mom, Marcus taught me how to track footprints in the snow. We found rabbit tracks and deer tracks and everything. The simple joy in his voice pierced her heart. This was what mattered. Not corporate games or business deals. Just her son, happy and safe. That's wonderful, baby, she said, pulling him into a hug. Why don't you go warm up? Get some hot chocolate. As Micah headed to the dining area, Marcus lingered in the kitchen doorway. His expression was troubled. Ms. Brooks, there's something you should know, he said quietly. While we were outside, I noticed a car parked down the road. Same one we've seen twice before. They're watching the diner. Fresh fear spiked through her. Are you sure? Positive. They're not even trying to hide anymore. Victor's expression darkened. Show me. Marcus led them to a window with a view of the highway. Sure enough, a dark sedan sat about 100 yards away, positioned where it could observe the diner's entrance. How long has it been there? Victor asked. At least 20 minutes. Maybe longer. Alana watched the car, her fear transforming into anger. Someone was watching her home, watching her son. The violation of it made her want to march out there and confront them directly. As if reading her thoughts, Victor said, Don't. That's what they want. A confrontation they can photograph and twist into whatever narrative serves Pierce's purposes. So we just let them watch. We document it. Build our own evidence for when this goes legal. Victor pulled out his phone and began taking photos. Every surveillance attempt, every intimidation tactic, it all becomes ammunition. The rest of the morning passed in tense quiet. The car eventually drove away, but the unease remained. Customers who would normally stop by for lunch stayed away. Alana could only assume the gossip and police visit had frightened them off. Around noon, a sleek black car pulled up. A man in an expensive suit emerged, carrying a briefcase. He entered the diner with the confidence of someone used to getting what they wanted. Ms. Brooks, he said, approaching the counter. My name is Gerald Hartman. I'm an attorney representing certain interested parties. I'd like a moment of your time. Everything about him screamed danger. Victor appeared at her side immediately. I'm her legal counsel. Victor lied smoothly. Anything you have to say can go through me. Hartman's smile, didn't reach his eyes. Mr. Hale, what a coincidence finding you here. My clients are prepared to make Ms. Brooks a very generous offer. What kind of offer? Alana asked, her voice steady despite her racing heart. $500,000. Cash. Immediate payment. All you have to do is ask Mr. Hale and his associates to leave your property and terminate any business discussions you may be having with him. The number staggered her. $500,000 would save the diner, pay off every debt, secure Micah's future. It was more money than she'd ever imagined having. It was also blood money. Who are your clients? Victor asked, though they all knew the answer. That's confidential, but they're very motivated to ensure this transaction moves smoothly. The offer expires in 24 hours. Alana's hands trembled. You're trying to bribe me. I'm offering you financial security. What you do with Mr. Hale is your business. We're simply interested in ensuring you're not pressured into agreements that might not be in your best interest. Get out, she said, her voice low and dangerous. Get out of my diner right now. Hartman's expression didn't change. He simply reached into his briefcase and placed a business card on the counter. When you change your mind, call that number. The offers stand for 24 hours. After that, my clients will pursue other options. The threat was clear. After 24 hours, things would get worse. He left as smoothly as he'd arrived. The moment the door closed, Alana's legs gave out. Victor caught her, guiding her to a booth. $500,000, she whispered. That's more than this place is worth twice over. It's intimidation money. Pierce wants me isolated, and he's willing to pay for it. Maybe I should take it. Maybe it's the smart thing to do. It's not smart, it's surrender. The moment you take that money, you prove their tactics work. And they'll use those same tactics on the next person and the next. Victor's voice was fierce. Your father didn't raise you to be bought, Alana. The words hit like a slap. Don't you dare bring my father into this. You don't get to use his memory to manipulate me. I'm not manipulating you. I'm reminding you who you are, who he taught you to be. She wanted to hate him for it, but he was right. Her father would have thrown that attorney out before the offer was even made. He'd never compromised his principles for money, even when they were desperate, even when it killed him. That evening, after Micah was asleep, Alana found herself going through old boxes in the storage room. Receipts, photographs, her father's handwritten notes. She needed to feel close to him to understand what he would want her to do. She found a ledger from 23 years ago. The entries were sparse, documenting the diner's struggling finances. And then, in her father's careful handwriting, a single line that made her breath catch. Helped young man tonight. Gave him $200 and hope. Best investment I ever made. The date matched Victor's story. Her father had documented giving away money they couldn't afford to lose, and he'd called it an investment. Not charity. Investment. Victor appeared in the doorway. Can't sleep either? She showed him the ledger entry. He wrote about you. About that night. Victor read the words, and something broke in his expression. Best investment I ever made, he repeated softly. God, I hope that was true. It was. Look at what you became. What you're trying to do. I became someone who brings danger to the daughters of good men. Real impressive. She almost smiled at his self-deprecation. You also became someone who keeps his promises, who tries to help communities that everyone else forgot. That's not nothing. They sat together in the storage room, surrounded by decades of memories and dust. It felt like sitting in the heart of something larger than themselves. Legacy, purpose, the weight of choices that echoed across time. There's something I haven't told you, Victor said quietly. About Pierce, about why he really wants to destroy me. Tell me now. 5 years ago, Pierce tried to buy one of my companies, a manufacturing plant in a small town in Ohio. I refused because selling meant closing the plant and moving operations overseas. 2,000 jobs would have vanished overnight. Let me guess. He didn't take the rejection well. He destroyed the town's economy anyway. Used his influence to redirect contracts, pressure suppliers, undermine local businesses. Within a year, the plant closed despite my efforts. The town died, and Pierce bought the land for pennies on the dollar. Alana felt sick. That's evil. It's business to him. Ruthless, amoral business. And I've been in his crosshairs ever since because I represent an alternative. Proof that you can be successful without being cruel. The Rural Renaissance Initiative. You're trying to save towns like that one. I'm trying to prevent what happened in Ohio from happening anywhere else. The diner, your community, they're exactly what I'm fighting for. And Pierce knows it. That's why he's targeting you. Because helping you proves my model works. The pieces clicked together. This wasn't just about corporate rivalry. It was about two fundamentally different visions of how business should operate. Victor saw communities as partners. Pierce saw them as resources to exploit. I need to tell you something too, Alana said, about why I'm so resistant to help. You don't have to. Ido. She took a breath. My father died of a heart attack 3 years ago, but it wasn't random. He'd been under incredible stress, working himself to exhaustion, trying to keep the diner afloat. He took out loans he couldn't repay, made promises to suppliers he couldn't keep. He died owing money to half the town. Alana, I'm so sorry. I spent the first year after his death just paying off his debts, apologizing to people, trying to salvage his reputation. And I swore I'd never let myself get into that position, that I'd handle everything myself, without help, without depending on anyone else's charity or pity. That's not pride. That's survival. It's both. And it's why accepting your help feels like failing him, like admitting I can't do what he did. Victor reached across the small space and took her hand. The gesture was gentle, not romantic, just human connection. Your father built something beautiful, but he also taught you that helping people matters more than maintaining appearances. Right now, letting me help you isn't weakness. It's allowing his legacy to continue in a new form. Tears stung her eyes. I am scared of trusting you, of making the wrong choice, of what happens to Micah if I fail. I'm scared too, of letting you down, of proving Pierce right, that money corrupts everything it touches. But I think we could be scared together and still do the right thing. She wiped her eyes roughly. The partnership agreement. I want to see the actual terms. Every clause. Every detail. Hope flickered across his face. I'll have my lawyers send it tonight. And I want my own lawyer to review it. Someone independent. Not connected to you or Pierce. Absolutely. I'll pay for the consultation. No, I'll pay. This is my decision. I need to make it with my own resources. He nodded, respecting the boundary. Fair enough. They sat in silence for a while longer, the weight of everything pressing down on them. Then Victor's phone buzzed. He checked it, and his expression shifted from thoughtful to alarmed. What is it? Alana asked. My head of security. Someone just sent an email to our corporate office. Photos of Micah. From outside his school. The world tilted. What? Victor showed her the phone. The images were clear, taken from a distance with a telephoto lens. Micah leaving school. Micah at the playground. Micah getting into Alana's car. The message was simple. Interesting family you're protecting, Mr. Hale. Would be a shame if something disrupted their routine. Alana couldn't breathe. Her vision tunneled. Someone had photographed her baby, had watched him at school, had documented his movements, had threatened him. I'm going to kill them, she whispered. Whoever did this, I'm going to kill them. We're going to the police, Victor said, his voice hard as iron. Right now, this crosses every line. This is witness intimidation at minimum, possibly criminal harassment. Will they even believe us? After this morning, Dalton already thinks we're suspicious. They'll believe evidence. Photo, timestamp, threatening message. This isn't gossip or innuendo. This is a crime. Marcus appeared in the doorway, having heard the commotion. What happened? Victor explained quickly. Marcus's expression went cold and dangerous. I'll get the team mobilized. Full protection detail on the boy, effective immediately. No one goes near Micah without clearance, Victor ordered. School, home, everywhere. I want eyes on him 24/7. Alana felt like she was watching everything from outside her body. Her worst fear had materialized. Her choice to help Victor had put Micah directly in danger. This is my fault, she said numbly. I should have made you leave. Should have taken the money. Should have protected him better. This is Pierce's fault, Victor said fiercely. And we're going to make sure he pays for it. But first, we're getting Micah somewhere safe. Where? We're as safe when these people can get to him at school. I own a property 2 hours from here. Gated, secure, completely private. We can have Micah there with full security in 90 minutes. I'm not sending my son away. Then you both go. Stay there until this is resolved. The offer was tempting. So tempting. But running felt like losing. Like letting Pierce win. Before she could respond, another message came through on Victor's phone. This one was longer, more detailed. Victor read it, and she watched the color drain from his face. What? She demanded. What now? One of my executives. Someone I trusted. He's been feeding information to Pierce. Location updates, security protocols, travel plans. Everything. Who? David Chun. My chief financial officer. He's been with me for 8 years. Victor looked gutted. Pierce must have gotten to him somehow. Money, blackmail, something. How do you know it's him? My security team tracked the leak. The photos of Micah were sent from an IP address that traces back to David's home network. Betrayal upon betrayal. Alana felt like she was drowning in it. What are you going to do? She asked. Confront him. Find out why. Then make sure he can't hurt anyone else. Will that stop Pierce? No, but it'll slow him down. Give us time to build a legal case. Victor's jaw clenched, and it'll show him that I'm not backing down. That threatening children only makes me fight harder. Through the storage room window, Alana could see the first light of dawn breaking gray and cold. Another day in this nightmare. Another day of fear and uncertainty. But also another day of fighting back. I'll sign the partnership agreement, she said suddenly. Not because I'm giving up or giving in, but because my father taught me that the right fight is worth having. In protecting this diner, protecting what it represents, that's the right fight. Victor looked at her with something like awe. Are you sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. Because running didn't save my father, and it won't save me. The only way through is forward. Then we go forward together. She stood, exhaustion and determination mixing in her bones. I need to check on Micah. Make sure he's still sleeping. And then I need coffee. Lots of coffee. I'll make it, Victor said. You go be with your son. She climbed the stairs to the small apartment, her legs heavy. Micah's room was dark and peaceful. She stood in the doorway, watching him sleep, her heart breaking and rebuilding with every breath he took. Someone had threatened her child. Someone had crossed the line that couldn't be uncrossed. They were going to regret it. Downstairs, she heard Victor moving around the kitchen, the familiar sounds of the diner waking up. Coffee brewing, equipment humming, life continuing despite everything trying to stop it. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Offer expires in 18 hours. Choose wisely. She deleted it without responding. She'd already chosen. Now came the hard part. Fighting for it. The confrontation with David Chun happened at dawn. Victor had arranged for his former CFO to meet at the diner under the pretense of discussing quarterly projections. Alana watched from the kitchen as David arrived, looking nervous and exhausted. He was younger than she'd expected, maybe early 40s, with the kind of polished appearance that came from years in corporate environments. Victor met him at the door. His expression was unreadable. David, thank you for coming. Of course. Though I'm surprised you wanted to meet here instead of the office. David's eyes darted around the diner, taking in the security presence. What's going on? Let's sit. Victor gestured to a booth. Once they were seated, he pulled out his phone and placed it on the table between them. I'm going to ask you a question, and I need you to be honest with me. Can you do that? Something in Victor's tone made David pale. Victor, I don't know what you've heard, but how much did Pierce pay you? The question hung in the air like a blade. David's face crumpled. For a moment, Alana thought he might try to lie to bluster his way through. Instead, he buried his face in his hands. God, you know, I know everything. The location leaks, the travel schedule updates, the photographs of a 10-year-old boy. Victor's voice was hard as stone. What I don't know is why. You've been with me for 8 years, David. I trusted you. I made you wealthy. So tell me why you betrayed that. David's shoulders shook. We finally looked up. Tears streaked his face. My daughter. Pierce found out about my daughter. The words seemed to cost him everything. Alana moved closer, drawn by the raw pain in his voice. What about your daughter? Victor asked, his tone softening slightly. She's sick. Leukemia. The treatments, They're experimental, not covered by insurance. We've been trying everything, mortgaging the house, draining savings, but it's not enough. We needed $200,000 for the next phase of treatment. David's voice broke. Pierce approached me 3 months ago. Offer me the money. All I had to do was keep him informed about your movements. Silence fell over the diner. Alana felt her anger deflating, replaced by a complicated mix of sympathy and horror. A father trying to save his child. She understood that desperation intimately. Victor's expression had shifted too. The hardness remained, but something else moved beneath it. Understanding. Compassion. Why didn't you come to me? He asked quietly. I tried. I started to a dozen times. But I was ashamed and afraid. Afraid you'd think I was asking for charity. Afraid it would change how you saw me. So instead you sold me out to a man who wants to destroy everything we've built. I know. God, I know. I justified it by telling myself it was just information, that I wasn't really hurting anyone. But then he started asking about this place, about Ms. Brooks, about her son. David looked at Alana, his eyes pleading. I sent the photos. I'm the one who gave him the ammunition to threaten a child. There's no excuse for that. None. Victor sat back, his jaw working. Alana could see the war happening inside him. Justice versus mercy. Principle versus understanding. Your daughter, Victor said finally. How is she? The treatment's working. She's responding well. The doctors are optimistic. Fresh tears fell. I saved my daughter by helping to destroy yours and someone else's child. I have to live with that. No, Victor said firmly. You made a choice under impossible circumstances. Pierce exploited your desperation. That doesn't excuse what you did, but it explains it. An explanation matters. David stared at him. You're not firing me. I'm firing you. Effective immediately. You violated trust in ways that can't be repaired. But I'm also going to make sure your daughter gets the care she needs. Every treatment, every medication, fully covered. And I'm going to help you find another position somewhere that isn't my company. I don't deserve that. Probably not. But your daughter deserves a father who doesn't have to choose between her life and his integrity. And I refuse to let Pierce turn me into someone who punishes desperate parents. Alana watched this exchange with something like awe. Victor had every right to destroy David, to prosecute him, to make an example of him. Instead, he was choosing mercy, the kind of mercy her father would have chosen. There's one more thing I need from you, Victor continued. A full written statement detailing everything Pierce asked you to do. Every piece of information you provided, every tactic he employed. We're building a legal case against him, and your testimony will be crucial. David nodded eagerly. Anything. I'll testify. I'll give depositions, whatever you need. I owe you that much at least. You owe me nothing, but you owe it to yourself to make this right. Victor stood. Marcus will take your statement. Be thorough. Leave nothing out. As David was led away by Marcus, Alana approached Victor. That was incredibly kind of you. It was practical. An enemy I destroy becomes a martyr for Pierce to exploit. A former employee I help becomes a witness for our side. It was still kind. Victor's expression softened. Your father showed me that mercy can be strength. I'm just following his example. The morning brought more developments. The local newspaper, a small weekly publication that barely stayed afloat, ran a front-page story. But this time, the narrative had shifted. The headline read, Billionaire's Rural Investment Initiative Targets Local Diner for Revitalization. The article was surprisingly balanced, explaining Victor's Rural Renaissance initiative, his history with the diner, and the potential economic benefits for the community. It quoted several business owners who supported the plan and noted the jobs it could create. How did this happen? Alana asked, reading over Victor's shoulder. I called the editor yesterday. Gave her the full story on the record. Sometimes the truth is the best weapon. The response was immediate. Customers who'd been avoiding the diner started trickling back. Some came out of curiosity, others out of support. By noon, the place was busier than it had been in months. Mrs. Patterson, who ran the general store down the road, stopped by for coffee. She'd known Alana her whole life, had known her father even longer. I'm sorry I doubted you, honey, she said, her weathered face apologetic. That police visit got everyone talking, but I should have known better. Your daddy raised you right. It's okay, Mrs. Patterson. It did look suspicious. Still, community's supposed to stick together, especially when outsiders come poking around. She glanced at Victor, who was working on his laptop in the corner booth. Though I suppose that one's not exactly an outsider, is he? If the papers got it right about what your daddy did for him all those years back. No, I guess he's not. The shift in public perception was palpable. What had been suspicion transformed into something closer to pride. Their little town had helped create a billionaire. Their kindness had mattered. It was a story people wanted to believe. By afternoon, Sheriff Dalton returned. His demeanor was markedly different from his previous visit. Ms. Brooks, Mr. Hale, I owe you both an apology. We received evidence about the surveillance and harassment. Photographic proof, witness statements. This goes beyond local jurisdiction. We've contacted the FBI. Victor nodded. We appreciate your diligence, Sheriff. There's more. We traced the vehicle that's been watching your establishment. Rental car, paid for by a shell company connected to Lawson Pierce. And those photos of your son, Ms. Brooks, they were taken by a private investigator Pierce hired. Man has a record for harassment. We've issued a warrant. Relief flooded through Alana. Official validation. Law enforcement taking the threats seriously. What happens now? FBI will handle the federal investigation. Corporate espionage, witness intimidation, possibly racketeering if they can connect enough dots. Pierce has made a lot of enemies. This might be the case that finally brings him down. After Dalton left, Alana found herself standing at the window, watching Micah play outside under Marcus's supervision. Her son looked happy, unburdened by the adult chaos swirling around him. That innocence was worth protecting at any cost. Penny, for your thoughts. Victor appeared beside her. I was thinking about what comes next. After all this settles, assuming it settles, it will. Pierce is desperate now. Desperate people make mistakes. He's already made several. And the diner? The partnership? Is that offer still real? Or was it just a tactic to fight Pierce? Victor turned to face her fully. The offer was never about Pierce. It's about honoring a debt that's 23 years old. It's about proving that business can build communities instead of destroying them. And it's about making sure your father's legacy doesn't die because the bank couldn't see past quarterly profits. I had my lawyer review the contract. She said it's the fairest partnership agreement she's ever seen. Almost too fair. Like you're giving more than you're getting. I'm getting plenty. I'm getting to repay the man who saved my life. I'm getting a pilot program that could revolutionize rural investment. And I'm getting to work with someone who reminds me why any of this matters in the first place. Heat crept up Alana's neck. That's a lot of pressure to put on a failing diner and a single mom. You're not failing. You're surviving impossible circumstances with grace and strength. There's a difference. Before she could respond, Marcus hurried inside, his expression urgent. Victor, we've got a problem. There's a crowd forming at the edge of the property. Maybe 40, 50 people. Some have signs. Alana's stomach dropped. What kind of signs? They went to the window. Sure enough, a group had gathered on the road. But as Alana read the signs, relief washed over her. They weren't protesters. They were supporters. Save Brooks Diner. Community over corporations. Thank you, Victor Hale. We remember kindness. What is this? She whispered. Mrs. Patterson appeared at the door, slightly out of breath. We organized it. After the newspaper article. Figured you could use some visible support. Show Pierce and anyone else watching that this town stands with its own. Tears stung Alana's eyes. You did this for me. Your father helped half the people out there at one time or another. Free meals when folks were struggling. Extensions on debts. Kindness when kindness mattered most. It's time we returned the favor. The crowd grew throughout the afternoon. Local news crews arrived, capturing footage of the community rally. What had started as a small gesture became a statement. A declaration that small towns wouldn't be bullied by corporate interests. Victor watched from the diner window, and Alana saw something profound in his expression. Validation. Proof that his vision could work. That communities would fight for themselves if given the chance. That evening, as the crowd dispersed and quiet returned to the diner, Victor received a call. He stepped outside to take it, and when he returned, His expression was grim satisfaction. Pierce just withdrew his takeover bid. His board forced him out. The FBI investigation, combined with the media coverage of his harassment tactics, made him too toxic to defend. It's over. Alana could barely believe it. The immediate threat, yes. He'll face legal consequences. My company is safe. And more importantly, you and Micah are safe. The weight that had been pressing on her chest for days suddenly lifted. She sat down hard in the nearest booth, feeling lightheaded. I can't believe it. After everything, it's just over. Not over. Transformed. This was never just about stopping Pierce. It was about proving a better way exists. Over the next week, things moved quickly. The partnership agreement was finalized and filed. The bank, facing public pressure and FBI scrutiny of their accelerated foreclosure tactics, reversed their decision and extended Alana's timeline indefinitely. Renovation plans began. Architects and contractors arrived to assess the diner's needs. But Victor insisted on one thing. The renovations would preserve the diner's character. No corporate rebranding. No modernization that erased its history. Just careful restoration of what made it special in the first place. Your father built something that mattered, Victor explained as they reviewed plans. We're not replacing it. We're honoring it. The first major change was a new sign being installed. It still read Brooks Roadside Diner, but beneath it, in smaller letters, a Rural Renaissance Initiative pilot program. Micah watched the installation with wide eyes. Does this mean we get to stay, Mom? Alana pulled him close. Yeah, baby. We get to stay. And Mr. Hale's going to help us? He is. Him and a lot of other people who care about this place. Grandpa would be happy, right? The question pierced her heart. Yes, sweetheart. He'd be very happy. The formal reopening happened on a Saturday morning 3 weeks after the storm that had started everything. The parking lot was full, not just with locals, but with reporters, business owners from other towns, even a few politicians curious about the Rural Renaissance Initiative. Inside, the diner gleamed. New equipment in the kitchen, refinished booths, fresh paint on the walls. But the bones remained the same. The counter where her father had served thousands of meals. The corner booth where Victor had slept as a desperate teenager. The photographs documenting decades of community connection. Victor stood beside Alana as she addressed the crowd. Her hand shook, but her voice stayed steady. My father built this diner 40 years ago on a simple principle. Everyone deserves kindness, especially when they're struggling. He helped people not because it was profitable, but because it was right. I almost lost this place trying to maintain that principle in a world that doesn't always value it. But I learned something important. Kindness isn't weakness. It's an investment. And investments, real investments in people and communities, they pay dividends you can't measure in dollars. She glanced at Victor. 23 years ago, my father helped a stranger. He gave him food, shelter, and hope when he had nothing else to give. That stranger became a man who came back to return the favor. Not because he had to, but because he understood what my father knew. That we're all connected. That lifting each other up isn't charity. It's humanity. The crowd applauded. Alana saw Mrs. Patterson wiping tears. Saw Micah beaming with pride. Saw Sheriff Dalton nodding approvingly. Victor stepped forward to speak. I won't take much of your time. I just want to say that what's happening here is bigger than one diner or one partnership. It's proof that we can build economic strength without sacrificing community values. That we can grow without losing what makes a place special. Brooks Diner is the first of what I hope will be many rural Renaissance projects. And I'm grateful to Alana Brooks for trusting me to be part of her father's legacy. More applause. Then the crowd began filing inside for the complimentary breakfast Alana had prepared. She worked the grill alongside her new staff, 2 local women who'd been unemployed for months before the renovation created jobs. The morning passed in a blur of conversation and laughter. Customers old and new filled the booths. Stories were shared. Connections made. The diner felt alive in a way it hadn't in years. During a quiet moment, Marcus approached Alana. Ma'am, there's something I wanted to give you. He handed her an envelope. From all of us on the security team, we wanted to contribute to Micah's education fund. She opened it, and her eyes widened. $5,000 in checks from Victor's team members. This is too much. You've already done so much. Your boy's special. Reminds us why we do this work. Protecting good people, good places. It's an honor. She hugged him, this man who'd gone from stranger to guardian to friend in the span of a few weeks. Late afternoon, as the celebration wound down, Alana found Victor on the front steps, looking out at the highway. Thinking about leaving? She asked. Thinking about staying. I have a business to run, meetings to attend. But it's hard to walk away from this. You're not walking away. You're part of it now. The partnership means you'll be checking in regularly. True. He smiled. Though I suspect I'll find reasons to visit more often than strictly necessary. For the quarterly reports, I'm sure. Of course. Very important reports. They stood in comfortable silence. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. It reminded Alana of countless evenings spent here with her father, watching the day end and feeling grateful for simple things. He'd be proud of you, Victor said quietly. Your father. Of how you fought for this place. How you protected your son. How you took a risk on trusting me. I think he'd be proud of both of us. Proud that his kindness created a ripple that's still spreading. That's what I want the Rural Renaissance Initiative to be. Ripples of kindness turning into waves of change. A car pulled into the parking lot. An older sedan, travel-worn and dusty. A young woman emerged, looking uncertain. She approached the steps hesitantly. Excuse me, she said, her voice tentative. Is this Brooks' Diner? The one from the news stories. It is, Alana confirmed. We're just closing up, but if you need something, we can help. I don't need food. I just wanted to see it. The place where kindness started something bigger. The woman's eyes were damp. I'm losing my family's restaurant in Nebraska. Banks foreclosing next month. I saw the stories about how you fought back, how Mr. Hale's program saved you. I wanted to see if it was real, if there's actually hope for places like mine. Victor stepped forward. What's your restaurant called? Annie's Kitchen. It's been in my family for 35 years. Not fancy, just good food and community. But that's not enough anymore. It should be. And if you're willing to let me take a look at your situation, maybe we can make it enough. Victor pulled out a business card. Call my office Monday morning. Ask for Sarah Mitchell. Tell her I sent you. We'll see if Annie's Kitchen could be our second rural renaissance project. The woman stared at the card like it was a winning lottery ticket. Are you serious? You'd really help. That's what this is all about. Proving that places like yours, like this diner, they're worth fighting for. The woman left in tears, clutching the card. Alana watched her go, feeling the weight of what they'd started settling on her shoulders. It wasn't just about saving one diner anymore. It was about showing other communities that survival was possible. You're going to change the world, she said to Victor. We're going to change it. Both of us. All of us. He gestured around. This only works if people like you are willing to take the risk, to trust the process. Micah emerged from the diner, his backpack slung over his shoulder. Mom, are we going home? Yeah, baby. Let's go home. Home. The apartment above the diner. The place she'd almost lost. The inheritance she'd almost squandered. It felt more like home now than it had in years. As they walked toward the stairs, Micah turned back to Victor. Are you leaving? Soon, but I'll be back. Is that okay? Micah nodded seriously. You should come back a lot. Mom's happier when you're here. Heat flooded Alana's face, but she didn't contradict him. It was true after all. Victor's expression softened. Then I'll make sure to visit often. That night, after Micah was asleep, Alana stood in the diner alone. The new equipment hummed quietly. The refinished floor gleamed. Everything was clean and hopeful and full of possibility. She found herself at the wall of photographs. Her father's face looked back at her from a dozen different moments. Young and strong, building the diner with his own hands. Middle-aged and content, serving customers with a smile. Older and tired, but still showing up every day because that's what you did when you love something. And there, in the corner, the photograph of him with teenage Victor. Two people connected by a moment of kindness that neither could have known would echo across decades. I did it, Dad, she whispered. I saved it. Not alone, but I saved it. She could almost hear his voice, warm and proud. That's my girl. A month later, on a quiet Tuesday morning, another storm rolled in. Not as brutal as the one that had brought Victor to her door, but enough to make travel dangerous. Alana was behind the counter when the door opened. A man in his 20s entered, looking desperate and cold. His clothes were wet, his car clearly broken down on the road outside. "I'm sorry to bother you," he said, shivering. "My car died about a mile back. Phone's dead too. I just need to get warm, maybe call a tow truck." Alana smiled, feeling the weight of legacy and choice settling over her like a familiar coat. She gestured to a booth. "Sit down. I'll get you some coffee and something to eat. No charge. I can pay, I just need—" I said no charge. Nobody gets turned away here, especially not in a storm. The young man sat, relief flooding his face. As Alana poured coffee and started preparing food, she felt Victor's presence behind her. He'd come back for the week to work on expansion plans. "Another one?" he asked quietly. "Another one," she confirmed. "Your father would approve." "I know." She brought the food to the young man, along with her phone, so he could call for help. He thanked her profusely, and she waved it off. "Just pay it forward someday, when someone else needs help and you can give it. That's all I ask." As she returned to the counter, Victor was smiling. "You're building something your father never got to see. A legacy that extends beyond this building. We're building it. Both of us. All of us." She looked around the diner, at the customers enjoying breakfast, at the staff working happily, at the photographs documenting generations of connection. "This is what hope looks like. This is what fighting for something creates." "Yes," Victor agreed. "It is." Outside, the snow continued to fall, transforming the landscape into something clean and new. Inside the diner, warmth and kindness filled every corner. And somewhere, in the space between what had been and what would be, the ghost of a kind man smiled. Legacy wasn't about buildings or money or even names on signs. It was about the ripples you created, the lives you touched, the hope you gave to strangers who became friends, who became family. Alana Brooks understood that now, and she would spend the rest of her life making sure that understanding shaped everything she built. The diner would stand, the community would thrive, and every person who walked through that door would find exactly what they needed most: shelter, kindness, hope, just like her father always intended. If someone saved your life once, how far would you go to return the favor? Like and subscribe for more stories that prove kindness is the most powerful weapon of all.